Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for Lecture 4 of this CSA Level 2 Umpiring course hosted by Western Province Cricket Umpires Association. My name is Abdullah Steenkamp and I am flying solo today, so Tom is not available today. The format for today's lecture is as follows. I will recap on last week's revision questions. I will then cover laws 27, 28, 31, and 36. We will then go through revision questions, and then I will open the floor for Q&A. So to quickly go through last week's revision questions, 5 instances where the ball automatically becomes dead. There are 8. Any 5 will do. Settled in the hands of the wicketkeeper, boundary scored, batters dismissed, trapped between batter and person, lodged in the clothing or equipment of the batter or of the umpire. There are 8, any 5 will do. Next one, in 5 instances when the umpire must call and signal dead ball. There are 14 of them, any 5 will do. When the umpire needs to intervene in a case of unfair play, call and signal dead ball. Serious injury to a player or umpire, call and signal dead ball, leaving his or her normal position to consult. If one or both bails falls from the striker's wicket before the striker has opportunity to play the ball, call and signal dead ball. Striker's not ready for the delivery of the ball and makes no attempt to play it, call and signal. Striker distracted by any noise or movement or in any way preparing to receive the delivery, call and signal dead ball. There are 14. I'm not going to go through all 14 of them, but only 5 will do. Next question. So the bowler, as busy running in, you, the umpire, notice one of the bails falls off at the striker's end. What do? The law tells us if one or both bails falls from the striker's wicket before the striker has opportunity to play the ball, either umpire to call and signal dead ball immediately. If neither umpire sees the bail fall off, play will then just continue as normal. How can you be dismissed of a no ball? There are 3 ways. Hit the ball twice, obstructing the field, and run out. How can you be dismissed of a wide? There are 4 ways. Hit wicket, obstructing the field, run out, and lastly, stumped. Penalty time question. So Wendy pulls her hammy and leaves the field at 10:09. She then returns at 10:31. So when can Wendy bowl again? So Wendy left the field at 10:09 and returned at 10:31 off the field for 20 minutes. So Wendy now needs to be on the field for 22 minutes before Wendy can bowl again. So Wendy returned at 10:31. So if you add 22 minutes to 10:31, Wendy can bowl again at 10:53. Peter pulls a groin and leaves the field at 10:20. He then returns at 10:40. So at 12 o'clock, he leaves again and does not return. The bowling team's innings is completed at 12:50. In these type of questions, you break it up into smaller pieces. So let's firstly look at the first instance when Peter left the field. So Peter left at 10:20 and returned at 10:40. So Peter was off for 20 minutes. So when can Peter bowl again? Return at 10:40, needs to be on the field for 20 minutes. So Peter can bowl again at 11 o'clock. Then secondly, Peter left again at 12 o'clock. The bowling team's innings was completed at 12:50, meaning so Peter was off the field for 50 minutes. So what needs to happen? Peter now needs to either wait for 50 minutes, or if his side is 5 wickets down, whichever is the earlier, before Peter can bat. And lastly, 2 instances when the umpire must call and signal no ball, and immediately thereafter call and signal dead ball. First instance is when a bowler delivers the ball, and that ball now makes contact with the person. An example of this, the spinner bowling, short leg standing. The bowler delivers the ball. Ball makes contact with short leg's foot. As soon as it makes contact with short leg's foot, call and signal no ball, and immediately, a split second later, call and signal dead ball. Another instance is bowler delivers the ball, and it starts rolling towards the striker, and it actually stops, let's say, halfway or down the pitch, in the middle of the pitch, rolls, stops in the middle. As soon as it stops, immediately call and signal no ball, and a split second later, call and signal dead ball. That was just to recap last week's revision questions. To kick off the laws for today, the wicket keeper. So when it comes to protective equipment, the law allows the wicketkeeper, and only the wicketkeeper, to wear gloves and external pads. The law allows it. If the keeper feels like he or she wants to stand without gloves or without pads, no issue. Cannot see a keeper standing, especially without gloves. I've seen keepers standing without pads, but I haven't seen any keeper stand without gloves. So the law allows for the keeper, and only the wicketkeeper, to wear gloves and external leg guards. And if the keeper chooses to wear the gloves and external leg guards, the keeper can then use it to field the ball. The keeper can then use the gloves to catch the ball, and uses the pads to stop the ball. Only the keeper is allowed to wear gloves and external pads. If by the keeper's actions and positioning it becomes apparent that the keeper is not able to carry out the normal duties of the wicketkeeper, that keeper will forfeit his or her right to be recognized as a wicketkeeper in terms of catching the ball, stumping a batter, in terms of limitation of onside fielders not encroaching on the pitch. So what this means is this is with regards to the positioning of the keeper. So if because of the positioning of the keeper, let's say the keeper stands right on the boundary, instead of standing, let's say, 10-15 meter for a fast bowler behind the stumps, the keeper actually stands on the boundary. Because of the positioning of the keeper will not be recognized as a wicketkeeper. That keeper then cannot use gloves or external leg guards. If the keeper do stand with them on the boundary and touches the ball with the gloves and the external leg guards, that would be seen as illegal fielding. So there's nothing stopping the keeper from standing on the boundary, but you'll have to mention to the keeper that you are now not seen as a keeper. You now need to remove the gloves and the pads. If you don't, if you touch the ball, it will be deemed as illegal fielding. When it comes to the positioning of the keeper, the law guides us here that the keeper shall always remain behind the wicket from the moment the ball comes into play until the ball is delivered by the bowler. So keeper at all times needs to stay behind the stumps from the moment the bowler takes that first step until the ball is delivered by the batter, unless it touches the bat or person of the striker, or passes the wicket at the striker's end, or the striker attempts a run. If these three in these three instances, the keeper is then allowed to come in front of the stumps. But other than that, at the moment that ball comes into play, the keeper needs to stay behind the stumps. So if he touches the bat or person of the striker, the keeper is then allowed to come in front of the stumps. If it passes the wicket at the striker's end, after that the keeper can then go in front of the stumps. Or if the striker attempts a run, no problem. If the keeper contravenes this law, strikers and umpire needs to call and signal no ball. Let me show you an example. Keeper needs to wait until the ball has passes the stumps before the keeper can take the ball. In this instance, as you can see, let's assume the ball did not touch the bat or any part of the person of the striker. In that case, keeper needs to wait until the ball passes the stumps. And once it passes the stumps, then the keeper can take off the bails to stump the batter. In this case, because the keeper took the ball in front of the stumps, the strikers in umpire needs to call and signal no ball. The only times when the keeper is allowed to come in front of the stumps is as per these 3 bullet points. If he touches the bat or person of the striker, passes the wicket at the strikers in, or if the striker attempts a run, now the keeper can come in front of the stumps. Otherwise, keeper needs to wait until the ball is past the stumps. Movement by the keeper. What movement is the keeper allowed? So as soon as the ball comes into play, and before it reaches the striker, it is unfair for the keeper to significantly alter his or her position in relation to the striker's wicket, except for the following 3 instances. So keeper, once that ball comes into play, needs to wait until it reaches the striker. Unless there are 3 exceptions. Keepers allowed to move a few paces forward for a slower derivative, just 1 or 2 steps forward. Unless the keeper, by moving a step or 2 forward, it now brings the keeper within reach of the wicket. So let's say the keeper, it's a medium pace bowler bowling, the keeper standing, let's say 2.5, 3 meters behind the stumps. Now the keeper takes a step or 2 or 3 forward, and thereby taking those 2 steps forward, keeper's now actually on the stumps. That is not allowed. Yes, the law allowed a few paces to the keeper to come a few paces forward, unless the keeper's now within reach of the stumps. Keepers allowed lateral movement in response to the direction in which the ball is delivered. If the bowler delivers the ball is going down leg, keepers allowed to move down the leg side. Keepers also allowed to move in response to the strike, to the stroke that the striker is playing. If the striker is showing that the striker is going to, let's say, play a lap sweep, or the keepers then allowed to move. In the event of unfair movement by the keeper, either umpire to call and signal dead ball. Also, there's a punishment, there's further punishment. You could call and signal dead ball. Bowlers and umpire, then if there was a wide on no ball, that will always apply. 5 penalty runs will be awarded to the batting side. So there's fairly a big punishment if there's unfair movement by the wicket keeper. So 5 penalty runs will be awarded to the batting side. You'll inform captains, batters. A report also needs to be sent to the governing body. The fielder. When it comes to protective helmets, that belongs to the fielding side. The law guides us here. What should you do with helmets when they are not in use by the fielders? What do you do with them? The law tells us exactly where you need to place them. They need to be placed behind the wicketkeeper, in line with both sets of stumps. So you often find, let's say, spinner bowling from one end, there's a short leg fielder in place wearing a helmet. The next over, fast bowlers bowling, they don't need a short leg fielder in place. The short leg fielder will then remove the helmet. The law guides us. Where do you put that helmet? It needs to be placed behind the keeper, usually about 2, 3, 4 meters behind the keeper, and it should be in line with both sets of stumps. So now the keeper, the helmet is behind the keeper. The law now tells us that while the ball is in play and the ball hits the helmet that was placed behind the wicket keeper. So ball in play and the helmet hits the ball hits the helmet that was placed behind the keeper. What happens next? As soon as the ball hits or touches the helmet, it immediately becomes dead. 5 penalty runs shall be awarded to the batting side. Any runs completed by the batters before the ball was struck, together with the run in progress, if the batters has crossed as soon as the ball made contact with the helmet. So while the ball is in play, if the ball strikes the helmet, so example of this, let's say there's the keeper, the helmet was put behind the wicket keeper, the batter hits the ball to fine leg. They now run a single. Fine leg picks it up, throws it into the keeper. The throw is a bit wayward. So instead of now going to the keeper who's behind the stumps, there's a wayward throw now goes against the helmet that was placed behind the keeper. So here the law tells us, as soon as that ball hit the helmet, it becomes dead. 5 penalty runs to be awarded to the batting side. Also, any runs completed by the batters, together with the run in progress, if they had crossed at the instant of the ball hitting the helmet. So in our example, let's say they've only completed one run, so 5 penalty runs plus the 1 run that was completed by the batter. So 5 for penalty runs, 1 will go towards the batter, so 6 runs in total. Batter out of his or her ground. Let's look at a video.
Batsman out of his or her ground. When a batsman is out of his or her ground, he or she risks being stumped or run out. So when is a batsman out of his or her ground? According to Law 30, a batsman shall be considered to be out of his or her ground unless the bat he or she is holding or some part of the batsman's person is grounded behind the popping crease at that end. Here, for example, the bat is on the crease marking, but not behind it, which means the batsman is most definitely out. But would the batsman be out now? Both the bat and the batsman are over the line, but neither the bat nor any part of the batsman's person is grounded, i.e. in contact with the ground. So, yes, that's out again. This being cricket, there is an exception to this part of the law. If a batsman who must be running or diving has already made his or her ground, either with the bat or any part of the body, but subsequently loses contact with the ground while continuing his or her forward momentum as the wicket is put down, he or she will be not out. Next question, and this can be a bit of a headache. What constitutes each batsman's ground? Well, when one batsman is in a ground, i.e. grounded behind a popping crease, then the ground at the other end belongs to the other batsman. If neither is in his or her ground, for example, when they are both running between wickets or even stationary, each ground belongs to the batsman who is nearest to it. If both batsmen are level, then where they were before drawing level is the deciding factor. Of course, this being cricket, there are further delightful complications, such as two batsmen in the same ground, or three when you have a striker with a runner. But never fear, all mental anguish will clear with a little quiet meditation and reference to Law 30 in the Blue Book.
Just to summarize what was just explained in the video. So when is a batter out of his or her ground? So batter shall be considered out of his or her ground unless some part of his or her person or bat is grounded behind the popping crease at that particular end. So you need to have some part of your person or bat grounded behind the popping crease. So this, while the ball is in play, there's nothing grounded behind the popping crease and the wicket is put down, that batter will be considered out of his or her ground. But there is a but, and this but is, and this law was actually introduced a few years ago. This was not part of the law. Point number two was actually not part of the law. Only there was only point number one, and point number one uh, said that the batter needs to have some part of the person grounded or some of the bat or the person grounded behind the popping crease when the wicket is put down. Point number two was added a few years ago. Why was point number two added? You'll see on TV, and if you can visualize this, they take a quick single. The striker, let's say, diving at the bowler's end, and in diving, gets the bat behind puts the bat behind the crease, and then because of the forward movement, the bat actually pops up in the air. And now the bat's in. While the bat is in the air, the ball now strikes the stumps, bails out this lot, wicket is now down, and then there's an appeal. Because when the wicket was there was under the older rule, because when the wicket was put down, the bat was in the air, the striker was out, because when the wicket was put down, there was no part of the striker's bat or person grounded behind the popping crease. So that was the law for many years. Only number one was in place. The lawmakers discussed this, thought about it. It happened fairly often because of the forward momentum of batters while diving. They actually make their ground, but because of the forward movement, the bat actually pops up. The lawmakers now decided to change the law or add point number two to the law. So what did they add? They added that if a batter, and there's two conditions that needs to be in place. The batter needs to be running or diving towards his or her ground or beyond. So these two conditions need to be in place for this law to come into effect. The batter needs to be running or diving. If a batter, by either running or diving, grounds the bat behind the popping crease, and because of that forward momentum, running and diving, the bat now subsequently goes in the air and then the wicket gets put down, in that instance, the batter will be not out. Only if these two conditions are met, the batter must be either running or diving, and then must have put the bat behind the popping crease, and because of the forward momentum of diving or running, the bat now pops up in the air. While that bat is in the air, the wicket gets put down. In this instance, the batter will be not out, because the batter made his or her ground. It's because of that momentum of running or diving that the bat popped in the air, and because of that, the batter now gets immunity from being run out. But it must be the batter must be either running or diving. Yeah, this was new. They've added it a few years ago to the law. Appeals. When it comes to the timing of an appeal, usually 9 out of 10 times when there's appeal, it is usually a split second after the incident happened. Let's say it hits the pad. Usually an appeal happens a split second or second after the appeal. If there's a caught behind shout, it usually happens quickly after the ball, let's say, passes the bat in the keeper's hand. It's usually fairly quick when the appeal happens. Now, but the law actually tells us that an appeal is still valid, and then there's a window period for this appeal to be valid. And what is that window period? An appeal is still valid as soon as the bowler has not started to his action to deliver the next ball, and before time has not been called. So what does that mean? Doesn't an appeal doesn't have to be a second or two later. That appeal or a fielding side can still appeal as long as the bowler did not take his or her first step to deliver the next ball, and before time has not been called. So meaning, let's say, an example of this: bowler bowls, it goes past the bat, goes into the keeper's hand. Keeper then throws the ball to first slip. It goes to cover. Appeal is still valid according to the law. Ball goes to mid off, goes to the as it's mid off then appeal to you. Umpire, how's that for? How's that? Obviously appealing for a for caught behind. That appeal is still valid. Appeal that window period only closes as soon as that bowler take his or her first step to bowl the next delivery, and before time has been called. Also, a call of over does not invalidate an appeal as long as it's made prior to the start of the next over. This example to illustrate this point is the final ball of the over. The ball goes against the pad. No one appeals. The ball is now dead. The umpire calls over. So as everyone now gets ready to bowl, to get into position to bowl the next over, so the law allows before the first step, the bowler takes his or her first step to bowl the first ball of the following over, that appeal is still valid. Anyone can still ask you, umpire, how's that for LBW, that last ball of the over? I'm appealing for LBW. That appeal is still valid as long as it's not it's made before the bowler take his or her first step, and as long as time has not been called. So there's, as you can see, usually in practice, it happens quite quickly when there's an appeal. It happens a split second or a second later. But the law allows there is that window period for while that appeal is still valid. This needs to be done before the bowler takes his or her first step to bowl the next delivery. And when there's appeal, an appeal of how's that covers all ways of being out. Fielders does not have to be specific. They don't have to tell you how's that for LBW or how's that for caught behind. If they say how's that, it covers all modes of dismissal. When it comes to answering appeals, which umpire answers which appeals? There are nine mode of dismissals. The law guides us here. The law tells us that when it comes to the strikers in umpire, there are three modes of dismissals or three appeals that the umpire needs to answer. The strikers in umpire needs to answer. So if there's an appeal for hit wicket, strikers in umpire needs to answer. Stumped, as well as run out if it happens at the strikers end. So these three instances, the strikers in umpire needs to make the call. Hit wicket, stumped, or run out if it happens at the strikers end. All other appeals needs to be answered by the bowlers in umpire. Last law that I'm covering for today before I go over into the revision questions. Leg before wicket. Let's look at a video.
Leg before wicket. LBW. LBW is a little like the offside rule in football. Many people claim to know it, but how many people really do? Our handy checklist means that whether you find yourself umpiring an international test match or the kids on the beach, your reputation for fairness will remain intact. There are 5 basic criteria to consider. The batsman is out, leg before wicket, if 1. The bowler bowls a ball that isn't a no ball, unlike this poor fellow. 2. The ball, if it is not intercepted on the full, pitches in line between wicket and wicket or on the offside of the batsman's wicket. It cannot be out if the ball pitches outside the line of the leg stump. 3. The ball hits the batsman either full pitch or after pitching and before he hits it with his bat. 4. This is where it gets a bit more complicated. If the batsman was making a genuine attempt to play the ball, the point of impact must be between wicket and wicket for LBW to be an option. However, if the batsman has made no genuine attempt to play the ball, the contact must either be between wicket and wicket or outside the line of the off stump. 5. This is the crucial part. But for the interception by the batsman, the ball would have gone on to hit the stumps and dislodge the bails. Any questions? Just refer to Law 36 in the Blue Book.
So just to summarize the LBW points that you need to consider when there's an LBW appeal. First point, ball should not be a no ball. If not intercepted on the full, the ball needs to pitch in line between wicket and wicket or on the off side of the wicket. So law's clear. It either needs to pitch between the wicket and wicket or on the offside. That is why that is why you've always heard that if the ball pitches outside leg stump of the striker, can never be out, because the law is clear. Either needs to pitch between the wicket and wicket or on the offside. If the ball pitches outside the leg stump of the striker, never be out LBW. Always be not out if it pitches outside leg stump of the striker. Ball should not have touched the bat first of the striker. If the ball touches the bat first, striker can never be out LBW. You can consider an LBW appeal if it touches the pad or the person first and then goes against the bat. Then you can consider the LBW appeal. There's other points that you also need to consider. But if it touches the pad or person first and then goes against the bat, you can consider the LBW appeal. But if it touches the bat first and then goes against the pad or the person, never be out LBW. The ball needs to be intercepted with any part of the person. Yes, I know it's LBW, which states leg before wicket, but the law guides us. It can be intercepted with any part of the person. So whether it's the pad, whether it's the arm, whether it's the shoulder, any part of the person, you can consider the LBW appeal. When it comes to the point of impact, that point of impact needs to be between wicket and wicket. There's one exception where you can consider if the ball did not, the impact was not between wicket and wicket, and that is if the striker made no genuine attempt to play the ball with his or her bat. So point of impact, it must be between wicket and wicket. There's one exception, and that exception is only if the striker made no genuine attempt to play the ball with his or her bat, then you can consider if the impact is outside the line. But otherwise, if the shot has been played, the impact must be between wicket and wicket. And then lastly, the ball must have gone on to hit the wicket. So these are the points that you need to consider when there is an LBW appeal. This usually takes split second. Your brain, when there's an LBW appeal, this 5-6 points goes quickly through your brain. It happens in half a second, a second. And these are the points that you need to consider when there's an LBW appeal. When it comes to the offside of the wicket, the law guides us here. How do you determine which is the offside of the striker's wicket? And this is especially important, especially in these in today's time, where we do find reverse sweeps. We do find switch hits where a batter, excuse me, where a striker switch hitting initially as the bowler's running up, let's say starting off as a right-hander and then switching and now being a left-handed batter. So now, which do you consider the offside of the striker's wicket? This is important when it comes to the LBW appeal. You need to know which is the offside and which is the leg side of the striker. The law guides us. Let's see what the law tells us. The law tells us that how do you determine the offside of the striker? The offside of the striker's wicket shall be determined by whatever stance the striker took from the moment the bowler took his or her first step. So as soon as the bowler took his or her first step, you need to determine how the striker standing. That would be then the striker's offside. An example, if the striker is, let's say, a right-handed batter, The bowler now takes his first step. That when it comes to the offside, if you can visualize, if you visualize this, let's say it's a right-handed batter, bowler taking his or her first step. As soon as that first step is taken, you can visualize the left-hand side will be the strikers, this right-handed batters offside. And for the LBW law, it will stay the offside of this right-handed batter. I repeat what I said, and if you can just visualize this. Visualize a right-handed batter. You are now the bowlers in umpire. You looking down the pitch at the batter. You're now visualizing it's a right-handed batter. So the left-hand side will be the offside of this right-handed batter. So as soon as the bowler takes his or her first step, the left-hand side will always and remain, when it comes to the LBW law, will be the offside of this particular batter. Even if the batter switches it later on, that left side will remain the offside. When it comes to the LBW law, soon as that batter takes that first step, it will remain the offside of the striker in my example. So that this right-handed batter, the left-hand side will remain the offside. Even if that batter switch it and is now a left-handed batter, as the ball gets delivered, that left-hand side will remain the offside of the striker. That is all the laws that I'm covering for today. I'm now going to open the floor. Sorry, I'm first going to go through the revision questions, but our revision questions are interactive. I'm now going to unmute everyone's mics. If you can just give me a second. Just give me a second. Let me just unmute everyone's mics. And I'm going to unmute you, open your cameras as well. So yeah, so our revision section is usually interactive. So I'm going to ask the questions, and I want the answers from the floor. And I'm going to look at whose hands is raised first, and I will give that person the opportunity. If you unmute your mic, you can switch on your camera if you want to. First question. So usually with these type of questions, the best way to answer them is to break them up into smaller pieces to understand what they are asking you, and to look at the mark allocation and then to answer accordingly. So it's the last ball of the over. The striker edges the ball to the keeper. So initially, there was no appeal by the fielding side. You then call over. So now there's an appeal by the cover fielder after you've called over. Discuss what happens next. So last ball of the over, striker hits the ball. No appeal initially. You call over, and you now you're starting to walk towards the strikers and getting into position for the next over. Now there's an appeal by the cover fielder for caught behind. What happens next? Okay, the first hand that I see. Amrut, if you can unmute yourself and tell me what happens next.
Yes, sir. An appeal is valid before a bowler begins his run up, or if in case there is no run up before he starts his bowling action. So in this case, when the umpire calls over, still the appeal is valid, till the next bowler starts his run up or his action. So the call of an over does not invalidate an appeal. So in this case, the umpire can still the appeal is still valid, and if it's an edge, it can be given out before the next bowler starts his uh, action or his delivery stride.
Well done, Amrit. That is 100% correct. Again, just to emphasize what the laws say in terms of the validation of an appeal. Appeal is still valid. It must be made before the bowler begins his or her run up, or if there's no run up, his or her bowling action, and before time has been called. Also, the call of over does not invalidate an appeal as long as it's made prior to the start of the next over and as long as time has not been called. So in this scenario, the appeal by the cover fielder is still valid. So you as the bowlers and umpire, if you believe, because that appeal is still valid, if you believe that the batter has edged the ball and the catch was taken cleanly, you should give the striker out court. So very brave decision, but a good decision. The law allows you that appeal is still valid. You can still give the batter out. And since this, if you do give the batter out, since this was the last ball of the over, the next over, the non-striker will face the first ball of the next over. So well done, Amrit. Next question. On any given or in any match, most of your appeals, actually 80% of all appeals on any given day is for LBW. That's why it's so important that you do have a good grasp, that you do know your LBW law very well, because most of your appeals on any given day at any level is for LBW. Discuss in full what are the points that the umpire needs to consider, and there are 6 points that you need to consider when there's an LBW appeal. What are those 6 points? There are, I'm going to take one each. The first hand that I see is Lux. If you can unmute yourself and give me the first one of the points that you need to consider.
Um, the first one would be the bowler bowls a ball which is not a no ball.
Not an oval. That's the first one. Well done. Kuno, can you give me the second point that you need to consider?
Yeah, the ball, if not intercepted in full, has to pitch between wicket to wicket or on the off side of the wicket. If it is on the leg side, it is you should not consider the LBW appeal.
Well done, Kunal. Yes, correct. Yuan B, next point to consider.
The ball should not have made contact with the bat before the ball has hit the pad.
Well done. Yes. Yeah. Next hand I see is Daitram. What is the next point?
Yeah, so the ball should make impact in line with the stumps unless he or she does not play a shot.
Yes, Daitram. The impact should be between wicket and wicket. There's actually a point before that. The ball needs to hit any part of the striker's person, so whether it's the pad or any part of the person. But yeah, you're right. Point of impact between wicket and wicket, unless there's no genuine attempt to play with the ball. And what is the last point that you need to consider before the ball, for you to consider an LBW appeal? Last
It would
one.
have it would have gone to hit the wicket.
That
Yeah.
is last one. It's important one. Yes, all 6 points are important, but you need to make that judgment call. Would, according to you, that ball have gone on to hit the wicket? If yes, if all you tick correct by all these points, you can give the striker out LBW. Well done. Last of my revision questions. After this, I'm going to open the floor for Q&A. I'm first going to go to the chat box to see if there's any questions in the chat box. And once I've completed the chat box questions, I'll then open the floor. Question 3. So when it comes to these type of questions, try to break them up into smaller sections. Also, try to visualize the scenario. That makes it easier for you to be able to answer this question. So break it up into smaller pieces and then visualize. So if you can close your eyes and just visualize what's happening here. So it's an off spinner, and the off spinner bowls the ball from over the wicket. And the off spinner bowls over the wicket to a left-handed batter. So visualize. Right arm over the wicket, left-handed batter. So you can just visualize left-handed batter. Where's the offside? Where's the leg? Where's the leg side? Visualize. The striker then changes his stance. The striker switch hits. And now the striker is a right-handed batter, attempting now to play the shot. So again, visualize what the striker is doing. Initially, a right-handed bowler over the wicket, left-handed batter. Striker now switch it. The striker is now a right-handed batter. The ball pitches outside the off stump of the now right-handed batter. So if you can visualize what happens, it's now a right-handed batter, and according to this scenario, the ball now pitches on the offside of this right-handed batter. So where does the ball pitch? If you can visualize, it's a right-handed batter. Where's the offside of the right-handed batter? On the left-hand side. So that's where the ball pitches. The striker now misses the ball, and the ball hits the striker on the back pad below the knee roll, right in front of middle stump. Huge appeal by the fielding side. What is your decision? I'll give you a few seconds just to chew on it, just to visualize what's happened, and to now apply the law. We've just covered it in terms of the offside, which is the offside of the law, and how do you determine the offside? You now need to apply that law in this question. Let me go to see if any hands are raised, and I am going to give preference to new hands that I see. The first new hand that I see is Snell, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Snell, if you can unmute yourself. Yeah, can you give me now? There's this huge appeal. Now you first need to answer the appeal. So what is your answer to the appeal? And whether it's either out or not out, and then give me a reason why you say out or not out. So what is the answer to the appeal?
The answer to the appeal would be not out. The reason being, the striker was a left-handed batter. His stance was left-handed. He's a left-handed batter, as I assume. When the bowler started his took his first step and was starting with his bowling, and later he changed his strike, and the ball was delivered on the off side of a right-handed batter, which is going to be outside the leg stump of a left-handed batter.
So why are you giving this not out? Where did the ball pitch?
The ball pitched outside the off stump of the now right-handed batter.
Yeah, but it pitched outside the leg stump of the left-handed batter.
Left-handed batter.
So, Snell, well done. A virtual high five. We are giving you a high five. Well done. Excellent answer. That's exactly why this is not out. You need to consider as soon as that bowler took his or first step, which was the offside and which was the left side. This was a left-handed batter when the bowler took his or her first step, and when it pitches, it pitched outside the leg stump of the left-handed batter. Yes, it was outside off stump of the right-handed batter, but you don't take that into account. As Neil was saying, you need to consider when the bowler took his first step, what batsman was this? What type? This was the left-handed batter, pitch outside leg stump, and that's the reason why this the answer to the appeal was not out. Well done, virtual high five.
Thank you.
That is all revision questions for this for today. I am now going to open the floor for Q&A. I'm first going to go to the chat box. Let me have a look at the chat box if I see any questions in the chat box. And after I've answered the questions in the chat box, I will then open the floor to anyone who would like to ask any questions. You can just raise your hand. If everyone can just lower your hand. I'm not sure if there's still old hands that are raised. If there is, just lower your hand. Because if I do see a hand, then I'll know there's a question. First question in the chat box was from Taitram. Taitram is saying, keeper, standing up, breaks the stumps while ball is mid-air and not being in contact with the striker's bat or person. What would your decision be? So Taitram, law guides us here. Soon as the ball comes into play, soon as the ball takes his or her the bowler takes his or her first step, keeper needs to remain behind the stumps. So now in your scenario, ball is still mid-air and ball didn't touch a bat or person. So because keeper broke the stumps, the law sees this as keeper coming slightly in front of the stumps. So what happens if the keeper slightly in front of the stumps? Strikers and umpire needs to call and signal no ball. So that's how the law sees this instance. Soon as the keeper breaks the stumps, law sees it as keeper having. Yes, it is millimeters, but you need to stay behind the stumps. There was a portion that was in front of the stumps, even though it was a millimeter or centimeter or two. So in this case, strikers and umpire to call and signal no ball. Second question in the chat box, again from Taitram. On many occasions, when the bowler and umpire turns down a contentious caught behind appeal, the fielding team urges the bowlers and umpire to consult with the square leg umpire. I do know you shouldn't be doing that, but when I read law 31.6, consultation with umpires, I get the impression that there might be a remote possibility of doing that. What are your thoughts? So Taitram, what the law there is referring to in terms of consulting your colleague is instances, and I'm going to use an example to illustrate this point. If you were in a position, you as bowlers in, sorry, where you perhaps maybe could not clearly see whether a catch was taken clearly. Example of this is ball gets taken low to the ground by first slip or by the keeper, but the bowler was obscuring your view in his or her follow through, and you couldn't actually see first slip or the keeper taking the ball. So because your view was obstructed. This is an example where you can go and consult your colleague at strikers in. So you'll call and signal dead ball, you'll take the ball, you'll walk over to your colleague and you'll ask your colleague, you say, I was obstructed by the bowler. Did the ball carry cleanly into the keeper or the first slip's hands? You now get guided by your strikers in. If strikers in say yes, you give the striker out court. If the strikers then say no, the ball didn't carry, you then give it out, not out. That is an example of consultation by the two umpires. Is instances like this where you're not 100% sure, where you can consult. And other examples, another example is spinner bowling, keeper standing up, the ball goes between the the bat, the bat and the body of the keeper. The bails are off. There's an appeal. So you're not sure, is this bowler bowled? You see the bails lying on the ground. The striker was in your way, obscuring whether you couldn't see clearly whether the striker was bowled or not. Another example where you can go to your colleague to consult. Call and signal dead ball, take the ball, go to your colleague, ask. You can consult. Was the striker bowled or not? Did the ball remove the bails, or did the keeper perhaps remove the bails with his or her pads or person? If yes, if your colleague tells you yes, the ball removed the bails, give the striker out bowled. If the colleague tells you no, the keeper, I saw clearly the keeper took off the bails with his or her pads, give then the striker not out. So those are two examples in what the law means by when you can go and consult the strikers in umpire. You cannot go to strikers in umpire for, let's say, this LBW appeal. Now you want to know whether there was maybe bad or whether it was maybe a bit high. These are not what the law is meant for. You cannot go to strikers in and ask, strikers in umpire, did you hear bad there? You cannot go to the strikers in umpire. Let's say caught behind appeal. You cannot go to strikers in and ask strikers in. Strikers in, did you hear that? If yes, okay, I'm batsman. Yes, you're out, caught behind. You cannot go to your strikers in if there's a caught behind appeal. Only in instances like the two example. Those are about two. There are more, but those are instances. If you need clarity on, you're not sure, your view was obscured. Those are instances when you can consult, but you cannot consult in an LBW appeal. You cannot consult in a court behind appeal whether there was a nick or not. Next question is from Kuno. Kuno asks, so which batter is run out if both of them are in the same ground? So Kuno, here you need to make a judgment call, and here also you can consult your colleague. If you've got TV, if this is a televised game, you can go upstairs, but and most of the games are not televised. Here's another example where you can go and consult your colleague. So the crucial point is you need to find out when that wicket was put down, which batsman was where. So in your example, so both of them are in the same ground. So you need to ask yourself, did the one batter leave the ground, stay there, and the other batter join him or her? In that case, the batter that was always in that ground, that's his or her ground. And the batter then later joined the other batter there. The batter that joined that batter will be out. I hope I've answered your question. When it comes to batters in the same ground, you need to just make the judgment call. You can consult your colleague. Did the non-striker leave his or her ground in any way? If not, the other batter that joined that batter would then be out. Taitram, next question. The batter who was previously at that end when the wicket was put down. Okay, Taitram just made a comment on your question, Kunal. Here's a question from Norbert. When a left-handed batter switches and is a righty after the bowler delivered the ball. Is the ball considered wide if it misses the ball that passes in front of the batter after he switched? So Norbert, the law that we discussed previously when it comes to the offside of the striker, that is only applicable when it comes to the LBW law. So when it comes to the LBW law, how do you judge the offside? As soon as that bowler takes his or her first step, that is where you judge. If it's a left-handed batter, when the bowler takes his or her first step, you judge which is the off or the leg side of that left-handed batter. That is only applicable for the LBW law. When it comes to the wide law, Norbert, there's a playing condition in place that governs how you judge the wide law when it comes to batters either switch hitting or reverse sweeping. So when it comes to a batter switch hitting or reverse sweeping, the batter creates two off excuse me, the batter creates two offsides for himself or herself when it comes to the wide law, and that is how you need to judge it. But this is only when it comes to the wide law. What we've discussed in this lecture was for the LBW law. When it comes to the wide law, you if a batter switch hits, the batter creates two offsides for him or herself, Norbert. Ayanda, your question is next. What happens when a wicketkeeper whispers to the batter with intention to distract him as the ball about to pitch? The batter backs up and the ball hits the wicket and claim distraction to the umpires, even though they didn't see or hear him. What decision is what decision would you as umpire make? Sometimes, Ayanda, this can happen where sometimes you can hear the distraction. Let's say first slip or the keeper whispering. Sometimes you can't. So in your scenario, Ayanda, what I will do is I will, if the batter backs away, as long as that batter does not attempt to play at the ball, I will call and signal dead ball. Yes, I didn't hear the batter, the distraction. The keeper whispered something in the batter's ear. But as long as that batter backed away and does not attempt to play the ball does not attempt to play at the ball, even in that instance, I will call and signal dead ball. If the batter do back away but do decide to play at the ball, and it now, let's say, goes against the wicket, unfortunately the batter will be outbowled. The important thing is two things needs to be in place for me to call and signal dead ball in this instance. Batter needs to back away and does not attempt to play at the ball. If that is the case, I will call and signal dead ball. I hope I answered your question. If not, you can raise your hand or put another question in the chat box. Let me see. I don't see any other questions in the chat box. I'm now going to go to see if there are any hands raised. I see Sandeep, your hand is raised. If you can unmute yourself and ask your question, Sandeep.
No, sir.
Okay, okay. So let me just then lower your hand. Let me just go. I see another hand raised. Daitram, If you can unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Yes, Abdullah. So
Hello, Daitram.
I had an incident like where a fielder would be walking in from outside the boundary. uh, I would advise the fielder to be inside and walking like it would be a fielder in the deep, like long on or long off, and they would just literally walk in from outside the boundary. So I would advise them to be on the field because that could potentially distract the batsman. But has that ever happened to you, or like how would you deal with that situation if you ever face that situation?
So Daitram, if I can just visualize what you're asking. So when you say fielder stepping outside the boundary, I mean, the boundary is quite a distance from the batter. So how would
Yeah.
this be distracting to the batter?
No, I mean the fielder is like beyond the boundary and he's just walking in when the bowler is running into ball. And and when he's walking in, he'll just be inside the boundary. But is he allowed to be, I mean, temporarily be outside the boundary? Is what I'm asking.
Yes, Daitram, the law actually allows for that. As long as as soon as that ball is released, he needs to be inside the field of play. If that is the case, no issue. So it happens quite often. Bowlers having a drink at fine leg, and then having a drink or maybe signing one or two autographs, and then as the bowlers are running in, they now start walking a few paces. As long as that ball is delivered, they're inside the field of play. Yeah, there's absolutely no issue with that, Aitram.
But would the batsman not feel like the fielder is out of the boundary? I mean, would he not have such doubts?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just
but yeah, but Daitarama, the guys on the boundary, that is 100 meters or 80 meters away from the batter. The batter striker is focusing on the bowler, looking at the ball in the bowler's hand. I'm sure the batter is not looking at that field. And also on the boundary, it's like 2, 3 meters or 4 meters that the fielder is going to go, or take a few steps, take maybe 4, 5 steps that the fielder is going to take. I'm sure that is not going to distract the batter in any way because the batter is not even looking at the fielder.
no. I mean, he won't get distracted. But what if he wants to know the field placement and he wants to play a big shot, and if he thinks, okay, that guy is beyond the boundary ropes, and he can go for the shot, and then he can.
Sorry, Daitram, let me just mute. There's someone that was, yeah, okay, they've muted themselves. Daitram, the law guides us here. If that fielder significantly alter his or her position, you as umpire can intervene and call and signal dead ball. But if I visualize your scenario, fielder standing outside the boundary, taking a fielder's not going to stand if it's
No, he's
usually
just
at
walking in.
international level.
He's walking
The
in from the boundary, outside the boundary. He's walking in, not having any
So
break
a
or nothing.
field is not going to stand 20 meters outside the boundary, nor 10. They're usually probably going to stand 2, 3 meters outside the boundary. So a fielder walking in 2, 3 meters from outside the boundary, and when that ball is delivered, is inside the field of play. I don't see that an issue. All you need to
Okay.
do is, as an umpire, you need to judge if the movement significantly alter the position of the fielder. If that is the case, you can intervene as an umpire. If not, you just leave it. But in your scenario, I don't see an issue. That fielder moving 2, 3 meters when that ball is delivered is actually inside the field of play. I don't see that being an issue to the batter.
Sounds good. Got it.
Okay,
Thanks,
copy.
Abdul. Yeah.
Thanks, Daitram. I don't see any other hands. Let me just go to the chat box to see if there's any other questions. I don't see any other questions. Any any other further questions that anyone would like to raise? The floor is open. Aksi, I see your hand is raised. If you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, hi.
Hello.
I have a question from last week, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. You can ask me any question, actually.
So last week, one of the scenarios for penalty time, there was a player, a fielder had gone off the field for 20 minutes. Then he came back, and then again at 12 he left the field, and the batting side was all out by 12:50. So we also added the 50 minutes. But should we also consider like the lunch time factor? Because in other scenarios, we said that a lunch break will be from 12 to 12:40.
So actually, no, you do not consider the lunch factor, and I'll use an example to where I'm going to take lunch into account to illustrate last week's example. So before I get there, when it comes to penalty time, only time that the fielder is not on the field of play will count as penalty time. So in last week's
Yes.
example, 50 minutes, that fielder was not on the field. So only that time is seen as penalty time, and that is the time that the batter or the fielder now has to wait. So if I can just add a lunchtime to last week's example. So the fielder left at 12 o'clock. At 12:50, the side was dismissed. And usually in a 50 over game, let's say there's a 30-minute interval between the innings. So at 12:50, when the side was dismissed, the interval will then start immediately. This 30-minute interval will start. So we now know that the opening bat owes us 50 minutes of penalty time. So now 12:50, the innings ended. There's a 30-minute interval. So from 12:50 till 13:20 will be this 30-minute interval. So the side of the innings of side B will start at 13:20. So the opening bat needs to wait 50 minutes from 13:20. So what is 50 minutes from 13:20 is for 14:10. The opening bat can only bat. Then the opening bat waited for 50 minutes before he can bat, which is 14:10, or unless they took 5 wickets in that 50 minutes, then that opening bat can go bat. So Aksi, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions? Let me just go to the chat box to see if I see any questions there. I don't see any in the chat box. Any other hands raised? The floor is open. Going once, twice. I see there are no further questions. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Looking forward seeing you in next week's lecture, which will be starting at 9. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Ites, I see your hand. Unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Hi, sir. Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, Ites. Yeah, good afternoon to you. Sorry, it's still morning in South Africa, but I know it
In
is
India, it's
definitely
around 2
it's
p.m.
India.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So, sir,
Yes.
actually, I have missed some. I mean, last session I was not in the class due to something outside. So, can I get some revision questions out there? Any presentation regarding the revision questions?
Yes, it is. So what we do, it is last week's lecture was recorded, so it is available on our
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
YouTube
Okay,
channel, and
okay.
then you can then view the revision questions, and it was interactive, so you can see the questions, you can hear what the answers were. So just go to our YouTube channel and view last week's lecture.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you.
Okay, no, you're welcome, Ites. Let me just see. Any other questions? AJ, did I see your hand or did you just lower your hand? I think AJ just lowered his hand. So once again, thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.